Hi, Amy.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. If I hide, if I do hide self view, can you see me now or not?
Yes, I can still see you.
Ah, right. Okay, so it only hides me from me.
So I've got an option to hide non-video participants. So I think when you turn your video off, it will hide you.
All right. Okay, fine.
Is it hiding me from you or not?
I can still see tech support on screen, but I can't see your face.
I'm wondering if I don't know then. There's Maisie coming in.
So can you see me, Pooja?
Yeah. So basically we just tested it. So the hide self view just takes you away from you.
Yeah. So the only thing is if I go stop video.
Yeah. So that's
and then on that view, go hide non-video participants. Am I now gone?
No, you're still there as Maisie Holder, but no video basically.
You're gone for me, Maisie, though. And I've only got Pooja on my screen.
Yeah, I've only got you, Pooja.
So I wonder whether it's because both me and Maisie have got our videos off, Pooja, that you can still just see a name. So I'm hoping when we've got more people on, it'll work.
Yeah, potentially. Okay, well, anyway, if we're not speaking, just come off video.
Yeah.
And do you want it on speaker layout, gallery, or speaker, right? So that the person talking's big? Or do you want to be able to see everybody?
I think everybody.
Yeah, I think everybody.
Okay.
So just to confirm, obviously, as speakers join, you'll be letting them in, right, Amy?
Yeah.
Yeah, so they've all been told to be here for 3:30, just so that we can make sure we can see them, hear them, and all of that.
I have got two actually waiting. Do you want me to let them in?
Perfect. 2 secs. And then once as long as we're happy with them, I'll just tell them to turn their camera off, their mics off, carry on doing whatever it is that you want to do, and then just be back by about 5 to 4. Yeah?
Yeah, okay.
Ready to go.
5 to 4. Is that when everyone's gonna start, or is it 1:45?
So it starts at 4.
Ah, okay.
Does that make sense? Yeah, I wasn't sure if you were on that. So the actual roundtable starts at 4. I just had them logging on at 3:30 in case there was any tech issues.
Right, okay. So what I would suggest in that case is if everyone does come on, just start. There's no need for them to log back out and log back on. So once Davude is on at 3:45, maybe just say at 3:50 we can kick off.
Yeah, but what I don't want is for the people that are arriving now, say somebody else doesn't show up until 10 to 4, I don't want to say to them, sit here for 20 minutes. Do you see what I'm saying? So I was just going to get them tested and then say, just make sure you're 100% back at this time and we'll all go.
Okay, fine. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, makes sense. Let's do it.
Perfect.
Gonna let you first two in then.
Thank you.
Hi, Andres.
Can you see other? Oh, I couldn't see anybody else. It just popped up. Hi, Andreas. How are you? And Jessica. Hi.
Hi, Jessica. Are they able to hear us?
Can you hear us?
I can hear you.
Ah, perfect. There you are. We can hear you too. How are you, Andreas? Can you hear us all good?
I can hear you.
Ah, perfect. Perfect. Lovely to meet you both.
You as well. Thank you for having me.
No, thank you for joining. Very excited to have you here. So we've got most people logging on kind of between 3:30 and 3:45. I don't think either of you are in the same time zone, but UK time. So we just wanted to get everybody on, make sure we can hear and see you all properly and that all the tech was working. We'll actually get started in about 20 minutes or so, so about 10 to 4 or 10 to the hour, depending on where you are. So if you wanted to pop your cameras on hide and your microphones on mute, feel free to go away and carry on doing what you need to be doing, considering you're all here and set up. And then if you can just be back in about kind of 15, 16 minutes, that would be great.
Perfect.
Good.
Perfect.
Thank you
Sounds
so
good.
much.
We'll see you soon.
See you in a minute.
Bernardo, how are you?
Hey, I'm so sorry for being late. I was stuck in the Teams meeting for some reason.
That's okay. You're absolutely fine. We don't start for a little while yet. We just like to have everyone logged on a little bit early, just to make sure your cameras, microphones are all working and you can access the meeting. So that is all good. So a couple of people have already arrived. We're just waiting for our 3 final speakers. So considering you're connected all fine, you've not got any issues, if you wanted to pop yourself on mute, switch your camera off, if you can then be back at about 10 to 4 UK time, so 10 to the hour wherever you are. I think we're all in different time zones, so I think about 13 minutes or so. We'll do a quick round of introductions so that everyone can meet each other, and then we'll kind of officially kick the roundtable off from then.
Perfect. Will do. See you in a bit.
See you in a few minutes. Thank you. Daniela, hey. Oh, you're on mute there.
Oh, sorry. Hello. Good
That's all right. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you. How are you doing, Maisie?
Yeah, good. Thank you. Good to see you again.
Likewise. I apologize for not joining earlier.
That's okay.
thought that we were starting at 4, but yeah.
Yeah, so we put the invite in a little earlier just to have a little bit of buffer in case anyone's got any kind of technical issues or anything like that. But a few of the other speakers have already joined. So considering you're logged on, your camera and your mic's working, you can hear us. You know, if you want to kind of feel free to nip off for a minute or two. I've asked everybody to return kind of at about 10 to, so it literally will be in about 3 or 4 minutes. That hopefully everybody should be back with cameras on. We can do some quick intros and then be ready to kick off at 4 o'clock.
Okay, yeah.
Does that work for you?
I'll just turn off my stuff.
Perfect. No worries.
Listen.
Thank you. Ruba, hello. How are you? Hi, can you hear me? You're on mute as well now, so I can't hear you. I don't know if you can hear me at all.
Yeah, I can hear
there we
you.
go.
Yeah.
How are you?
Good. It's good that you mentioned start a half an hour earlier to get some things, technical issues. First of all, for some reason, I don't have an internet connection at the moment, which I had all day, but fortunately my phone will help. Then I need to update my Zoom. I'm here.
That's good. So we built 20 minutes in for you to update everything, but that's perfect. You are a little bit slow and jittery, just to let you know. So there might be a little bit of a delay if you're having internet issues, just to keep that in mind. If people seem like maybe they're jumping in ahead of you, you're coming through a tad slow. But hopefully that will fix itself. So is your colleague joining us as well?
Yes, he is, but he apparently he had a Teams link at first, so I forward the Zoom link now.
Oh.
I presume he'll join in a minute.
Okay, perfect. Hopefully he's not sat in a Teams meeting somewhere.
Yeah.
Somewhere in the sky.
I'm all alone in a meeting. Where's everybody?
Perfect. So I think it is just your colleague we're waiting on, and then Dawood, who is our chair. Everybody else is here. They've just kind of switched their cameras off and popped themselves on mute while we wait for the last couple of participants. Feel free to do that. If you've got, emails, bits and pieces that you want to take care of, for the next few minutes, and then I can give everybody a quick little shout when we're ready to go. Hopefully we shouldn't be too much longer, and then we can kick off, you know, kind of on the hour. So yeah, once your colleague in Dawood is here, we should be good to go.
Okay, great. Yeah.
Perfect. Hi, Dawood. How are you?
Hello. Hey.
You're here. You're here. Lovely to meet you. How are you doing?
The same. Doing great. Nice meeting you all as well.
Perfect. And so I think everybody is here and we're good to kick off. I'm hoping most people can hear me. If everybody is ready to rejoin, here we go. Some faces. Perfect. So brilliant. Just waiting. There we go. And Jessica's joining too. Fantastic. So everybody's here. Lovely to see you all. Thank you very much for joining. I'll do some just kind of quick housekeeping bits and pieces, and then we will we'll dive straight into the roundtable. So first of all, like I said, thank you very much for joining. Super excited to have you all here and looking forward to what I'm sure is going to be a very interesting discussion. I copied everybody in to each other via email yesterday, so you should have seen who else is joining the roundtable. I won't spend too much time, we won't go into intros right now, because I know that we'll be doing that once we officially kick off and start the session. And I want to make sure that we're able to start straight on time at 4 o'clock. So I'll be here for the duration of the conversation, as will our Chief Strategy Officer, Pooja, who you'll see on the screen. And then we also have Amy, who is here as our tech support person. So if you have any issues during the course of the roundtable, feel free just to drop Amy a private message under tech support. She'll be able to help you. If you have any connection issues, if you drop out, just drop out, you know, rejoin. That will generally fix most issues, and we can just pick up the conversation from where you left off. But if you need any other help with anything, Amy will be there for you. I also outlined the format of how we're going to run the session in that email yesterday, and I will just run through it again now for everybody quickly, and feel free to let me know if you've got any questions on how. I don't know why I just went on mute then. So Dawood will be moderating the roundtable today. So we'll start off with Dawood just offering a few opening comments about the roundtable and the topic that we're going to discuss, and he'll then introduce each of you by name. If you can all then just offer a little bit of a bio about yourself and your role, and what you're looking forward to getting out of the roundtable today, that would be great. It's obviously important that we have introductions at the beginning, but we don't need to spend heaps and heaps of time, so kind of a minute each is more than enough. Once we've been through those introductions, we will jump into those pre-planned questions that I sent over to everybody yesterday. We've got a good sized group of people, and I think there was 4 or 5 questions in that list that are quite detailed questions. So it's likely that we won't get to everybody answering every question. I think probably 3 people per question will be plenty. So feel free to, obviously Dawood can ask people questions by name, but also do feel free to jump in if we've not got to you, but you've got something important to add on a particular question, or as well, if you've not got heaps to say on one, feel free to pass that on to another participant, just so that we can make sure we're getting as many kind of different views across the different questions as possible. At the end, we'll spend the last 10 minutes with Davu doing a little bit of a wrap up of the conversation and just highlighting what we think the biggest three takeaways are from the conversation. There's no live audience today, so there'll be no questions coming in, but we are recording the session. It will be available on demand, and we'll be generating a report based out of the conversation. Does that make sense to everybody? Has anyone got any questions or anything they'd like to mention before we get going? Yes, Danielle.
So can you tell us a little bit more about the report? How is it going to be shared? Where is it going to be published? And whether we will be directly quoted?
Yeah, sure. I might hand over to Pooja for that, because she's been managing the reports that we've been putting together after the roundtables. You're on mute, Pooja.
Love that. Hi everyone. Lovely to see you all. So yeah, just to answer that, we have a community of over 220,000 people within AI, and normally we would have a live audience to something like this. But in this case we haven't, and as Maisie said, it's on demand. So what we'll be doing is, as the session is recorded, we'll have one of our team kind of write up some of the key points. If you don't wish to be quoted on something specifically, you might want to kind of mention it in this group for the discussion. But if you don't want to be quoted on it specifically, just drop us an email after and say, don't mention that specific comment was from me. That's completely fine. And yeah, it will be circulated, you know, we'll send out an email afterwards just to let people know that we've had this discussion. For anyone that wants to tune in to some of the key takeaways and some of the key discussion points, they can either watch it or read the report. Most people kind of read the report. So
thank you.
Perfect. Any other questions? No? All good. Perfect. I'm going to hand over to Davu then, who will officially kick us off. Pooja and I will mute ourselves, hide our cameras as well. So it's just everybody that is involved in the discussion taking part. But like I said, if you need anything, just drop us a message. We'll be able to help, and we'll be in the background listening for the duration. Perfect. Thanks, guys.
Right. Thanks, everyone. Super excited to be here. A very interesting topic, and I'm very excited to hear what you're going to talk about it. So I want to just introduce myself before asking you introduce yourself. So I'm Dawood. I used to work in Apple. I recently joined a new firm very recently, and yeah, I also been teaching at Stanford AI at some point. Yeah, that's all about me. Let's go through the audience, through the panel. I'd love to learn about you, what you're doing, and then we will start from there. So I'm going to start with Andreas Braun, who is the former CTO of Microsoft Germany and lead and data of AI and STU for Microsoft. And so and now transition to new role. Andrew, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. Thanks. I'm still officially CTO for Microsoft in Germany. I'm in transition to a completely new role, as you said. And so what I did in my career is mostly either software engineering or building teams for machine learning, data science, or whatever then was called AI in summary, including companies like Allianz Group, Worldwide, and others. So what I mostly did is translating business opportunity ultimately into, say, Python code or something like this with comparatively large teams. And we had quite some very good business successes in doing so. What's also probably interesting, just to close that here, is I was involved with the European Commission, the European Parliament in the GDPR lawmaking process. So I have some experience with regulation where this might end.
Of course, yeah, regulation and generative AI is something that we all want to learn about it. And we're actually seeing what's happening, right? Because it's lots of unknown areas that we're getting all into it. Thanks, Andreas.
Thanks.
So next we have Hop Jansen, chair of Dutch and European working group of competent authorities on AI. So yeah, how do you know?
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you for inviting me. I'm working for the Dutch authority on the digital infrastructure. So we're a government organization supervising different parts of the economy, like the cybersecurity, but also on trust services and on AI. And from that role, I'm also the chair of the competent authorities, the supervisors in the Netherlands that all have to do with AI, and the chair of the European Working Group, where there's also the European Commission and ENISA involved. So the AI Act is one of most promising topics at the moment for a supervisor, because in the end, after political decision making, we have to supervise. And usually there's it seems to be there's a conflict between innovation and regulation, but regulation can help innovation.
Sorry.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry.
Last probably 10-15 seconds, if you wouldn't mind.
Yes. Okay. Yes. Right before this meeting, my internet connection got lost, so I'm doing this by my phone. Sorry. What I wanted to say is that supervision and innovation, I think, go hand in hand. Sometimes it looks like there's a conflict between it, but I do think, especially with AI, regulation can help innovation instead of conflicting with it, if you do it in a proper way. So I'm responsible for AI within my organization, but I'm not the expert. That's Meindert. So maybe Meindert, you can introduce yourself.
Yeah, thank you. Well, actually, you did the whole introduction actually already then. I'm the local subject matter expert on AI, so I get the privilege that nowadays I can get back to my roots, and every day I'm working on AI and keeping track on how it works. I have a master in cognitive artificial intelligence from a long time ago. After that, I had my own company in gaming, serious gaming, and I did some development, and it's a small company. We did an AI game as well, mostly a research project. Always been interested in the research side. After that, I went into consulting. Actually, what Andreas was telling is kind of the things I did there as well. But then in the companies like Nike and banks and the Port of Rotterdam, setting up teams and doing AI. One of the more interesting AI projects I led was the one where in the Port of Rotterdam we did the inspection through imagery. So just think about cameras on top of the cars driving around. The Port of Rotterdam is a large area. They have 400 kilometers of road to inspect. So it's a big job. But I'm now back to my roots again, constantly keeping up to date with what is happening and the daily sparring partner for Huub on what is happening, what is going to happen, and mostly what's going to happen in the next couple of months. Because nowadays, I think with large language models, we're reaching a little bit of an AI summer. I think we had enough winters by now, and I think something interesting might happen in the next year. But much further than that, I won't look into my crystal ball anymore because of the speed of it all. That's it.
All right, thanks for it. Yeah, I think we are moving to a summer or even beyond that explosion or something way beyond summer at this point. Thanks. Yeah, like both topics that you're talking about, like content and cybersecurity is one of the most impacted area with generative AI. I've heard many stories of people trying to use GPT-based models to find better way of like breaking the security of companies. So that definitely is a scary thing, but coming up. All right. Next, we have Daniela. She's the head of machine learning at BBC. So Daniela, please go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hello, everyone. I'm Daniela. I work in BBC at the moment. I'm heading a team of around 20 machine learning scientists. We do research in all areas of machine learning related to obviously media companies. So we do research in transcription of audio content. At the moment, we're looking to fine-tune whisper models on Northern Irish and Scottish accent, because the current model is not really good at those. So we're basically trying to leverage what we have, which is data, and build on top of the open source material that is out there. We also look at some of the large language models as well, like everyone else, the GPT-J, some of the Eleuther open source models as well, looking how we can use this primarily in the back office use cases. And then we had some research in recommender systems, but we're kind of winding that down and transferring over to product. And finally, computer vision, like very exciting projects in restoration and colorization of all archive footage. I used to work in finance prior to this post, and I have a background in maths.
Great. Always nice to see mathematicians here. And this is great to know that you are still not using generative AI at BBC to generate articles yet, right? Working mostly on the back end. Great. Yeah, also like, I guess big topic in all of this is training, right? It's a very hard task and can be very hard task, depends on what you're doing, right? Because both data, as you said, and also like these models are gigantic, how to like train them, load them on a server is not easy. Thanks, Daniela, for the introduction. Yeah, and then next I have Bernardo Calvas, Director of Data at Molly.
Nice to be here. Yeah, I'm Director of Data at Molly. Molly is a European fintech, actually based in the Netherlands, like our two colleagues here. I've been working in machine learning, data science in the past decade. Now I also lead the data engineering and data governance organizations. And data governance is always a very sensitive topic and very related to what we're talking about here. I've been working in the financial sector for a while, and so focusing a lot on the fairness and robustness aspects of machine learning, which are also related to our discussion here today. And I'm also the co-founder of an organization called Data Science for Social Good in Portugal, which thinks and tries to execute some of these actions to give benefits to the NGOs that we have around here of data science and ML. And so the focus on positive impacts on society of these technologies is something I'm very much concerned about.
Yeah, thanks. Actually, this is a very good topic, because when you're talking about fairness, especially in fintech, and now we're talking about this gigantic model that you have no idea how they operate, it's much harder to think about it, right? I'd love to actually hear more about what you're doing, and how you address such a hard problem. All right, and now I have Jessica Small. She's a senior. She's senior producer in documentary unit in CNN, and a person from media. Love to hear from you, Jessica.
Yes, hi everybody. Thank you so much for having me today. I confess I am far from an AI expert, but as was mentioned, I'm a senior producer with CNN's documentary unit based in New York. I've been with the group for about 10 years now. And I am here because I'm currently working on a 1-hour special documentary project on AI, sort of exploring both the potential, the great benefits that AI poses for humanity, and also the dangers, the potential dangers that we are sort of on the precipice of right now. And certainly, this has been a subject area that has been on our radar for quite some time, but given the bit of the turning point that we've all experienced with ChatGPT, it's now sort of an unavoidable area for us as journalists to address. And so we hope to, with this project, contribute some more information to the masses about sifting through a lot of the, the headlines, digging deeper into more genuinely what are the real risks and what are the real benefits that AI might be bringing in the very, very near future and currently. So thanks for having me. I won't be able to really, contribute much expertise here. So I'm really here to just listen and observe and maybe pop in a few questions and learn from you all. So, thank you.
Thanks, Jessica. This is nice. Someone else from New York as well. I'm in New York as well. Cool. And looking forward to see watching your documentary. That's coming out. So I guess we went through everyone. I want to thank again for the panel for being here and hopefully having a very interesting discussion. So I want to go to the first question that we have here. The first question is about what I guess many of panelists already mentioned about is about ethical guidelines. What are the ethical guidelines or principle around development of AI, specifically when we talk about generative AI technology? So I'm gonna ask this question maybe. I'll go with Maynard first because he mentioned his interest about the governance.
Well, yeah, but I'm from a philosophical background, so I was actually when AI was still in the philosophy department. It was a strange time back then. You're asking what ethical guidelines there should be actually, but we have none because we never had this type of framework, never had this type of tool that reaches this broad, such a broad application. I think that is the big problem with all this type of tool of generative AI, and I'm mostly talking about the large language models, is that in all places we're thinking about the alignment or about how to scope this tool in such a way that it becomes safe. But the whole point is that it's natural language, and it's been evolved in such a way that natural language is kind of like as broad as possible. We've been evolved in such a way that we can talk about almost any topic. So to set ethical guideline is something that will be, like it's always said before, is that ethics is something that evolves within each, what you call what the smallest unique social unit. In there, the changes and what is ethical is different from when you go one neighborhood further, what they think is ethical. It's a very difficult topic. I hope Andreas can become more clear on this.
Yeah,
yeah. Yeah, if I may, I don't really agree that we didn't have that before, and I don't agree that we don't have ethical guidelines. So we do. I think there's a lot of institutions defining those. Usually there's a set of complex abstract concepts like fairness, transparency, reliability, safety, privacy, security, and so on. It's usually some 7 or so. And that all makes sense. The problem with those is really how you apply them, because they're abstract concepts. There needs to be definitions. But I think both the guidelines are there, and there's also principles how to implement it. So, for example, how you implement it, there's discussion about human in the loop, which makes sense once the AI crosses the border to the real physical world or to humans, then it at least should be a human that looks at that. I personally think maybe it's AI in the loop instead, so humans using AI. But what I want to say in summary is there's a lot of things around that already, and I think they're useful if applied.
Could I have a small reaction, or is it because I think it makes it more clear what my point I was trying to make, because I agree totally with Andreas what he's saying, but I think the guidelines that have been there are, and maybe my question to the group is, the guidelines that have been there are mostly set there in a way like almost to govern a human, right? Like how should a human react? What are the action? How a human should act? And I think until now it's been quite difficult to put this type of governance on top of a system. That is kind of, that was maybe more the point, like the implementation part is the part that's missing, and the framework, I agree with you, that is kind of what we already expect of how should the human react and act. Thank you.
So I have a few hands up. I'm not sure who started first, but I go based on my screen. Daniel, you're first on my screen who have your hands up.
Just quickly to point out that there's been a research in AI alignment for since like 2000s and maybe even before that is directly related to some of these questions raised.
Yeah, I just wanted to add as well that we have the same issue with classical machine learning, right? So we all wanted fairness in classical machine learning systems. And for a while, we had to wait until we found mathematical definitions we were somewhat happy with when it comes to fairness, so that we can then try to take it out of these machine learning systems. So if you, like 10 years ago, almost no one was talking about making sure that the machine learning models that were predicting credit risk, for instance, were fair. And now we have ways of trying to remove part of that bias and to make sure that protected attributes are not influencing the decision. Now, obviously, given the open-ended nature of generative AI and LLM specifically, we have to rethink some of these definitions. So it's much harder to say what's fairness in the context of generating text. Okay. And how do you actually, exactly, it's super open-ended, right? Now we're talking about, for instance, tone. How can I make sure that the text I'm generating when I'm talking about women and men has the same tone so that I'm not more positive or negative about someone? And how do you actually define tone in this sense? So obviously the problem is much bigger, the scope is much larger. I'm a bit optimistic in this sense, like given that we had the same problem before with classical ML and we found a way of defining and trying to tackle it, I don't think it's impossible. I think we're lacking some tools, we're lacking some time as well, given that the explosion is fairly recent, but obviously there's something we can do to try to take some bias and and ensure some guidelines and principles around these models. I also think that there are new things. So apart from just like the same things like fairness that now have bigger scope, now we have the problem of truthfulness, which is not an issue with classical ML, for instance. Like hallucination wasn't happening with predicting credit scores, for instance. We have the problem of privacy, of generating verbatim text from training data that didn't exist. You have obviously impacts on work. You have generation of offensive content. You have IP problems. So there is a subset of things that are common, just a bit bigger in nature. And there are some completely different new topics that need to be added to our privacy frameworks that don't exist yet.
Hop, do you want to, you have your hands up?
So as a competent authorities, I often don't look at the AI itself. I look at the provider providing services that uses AI. And then you look a little bit different because, for example, if AI is used in a medical device, there's a lot of ground rules you need to take care of before you're allowed to put a medical device on the market. And it doesn't explicitly say ethical guidelines, but it has guidelines because it should protect lives, people's health, and things like that, including bias and whatever. So we shouldn't limit it just to ethical, because a lot of ethics are already in current legislation, implicitly or sometimes explicitly. So even a bad AI, but in a proper context, can still be very useful, and a very good AI in the wrong context can be very harmful. So don't just not limit yourself to the AI itself, but to the service you're providing.
That makes sense. I guess part of this question is always about, right, where are we putting regulation on the use of like this AI, or just training them, or what data are we training them, right? It's a very complex issue. So I see, Majid, you have your hands up. Are you still?
It's a new hand.
A new hand, all right.
All right. I agree that in most of the existing AI applications where there is a specific application to be defined as well, we really now have frameworks. I was thinking more in the, maybe that's the framework that I'm now currently where I see the most risk, is that open-ended framework, the AI assistant. That functionality of an AI assistant is such a broad definition that trying to build the framework and trying to make the AI conform in this alignment might be such a difficult task. It's like asking a person to become fully ethical on all the things it will say. It might be better to say this AI is a specific AI, and the moment you use it, you will have to reference it. That which person are you quoting? Which person in that way? Which other AI is the one in the loop in this conversation? So let's say in this meeting we had also an AI in here having this discussion with us, I can't say for 100% certain that it will be ethically aligned to everything. And it will also, there is no specific line that is everybody will agree upon that this is ethical. I'm pretty sure if you go to any other culture, there will be a different alignment that they will think. So it's probably more likely just to say, we have a specific AI, this is its own personality, and within that open-ended context, we have to look at it like that. Thank you.
I guess we have 2 more hands up, but if you don't mind, I'm going to go to the next question because we do have more questions to cover and then more interesting thing to discuss. The next one, which is actually very interesting, I want to ask the panel here. Can generative AI systems be held accountable for their output or actions? Like, how do we ensure transparency and responsibility in their use? So are they accountable if you ask a question from an AI?
Maybe we vote on that first question.
I think we are overcomplicating, frankly, and maybe you tell me if I'm wrong. So I worked a lot in regulated industry, and there all this regulation comes with the use case. So it doesn't really matter if you do something wrong in calculating an insurance premium using a pencil or a biro. That doesn't make a difference. The tool is not important. It's important what you issue to the end customer. So the pencil manufacturer or the pencil is not to be blamed. Same the AI or whatever tool you calculated in, be it Excel or something more sophisticated, that doesn't really make the difference. So how you apply that, and that you have also for data privacy, it's really about the use case and what you do with the data, which is the difference between privacy and security, data security and IT security. And maybe you tell me if I'm seeing things too simple. It's really what you make out of it, what is the use case and how you apply the result, and whether you're transparent if it's AI behind it or not. That's probably another thing that is super important.
And that's a good point, right? It's a very good point because it's like a knife, right? How would you use it? Is knife responsible for if hurting someone, right? That's actually totally makes sense. And also, like many technologies, right? At the beginning, there's a change of culture, and the transition might be a little bit like hard for the like society, but at the end, people I think learn how to interact with these things and not believe them, I would say. All right, so let's see what they would have here. I have Bernardo here. Go on, please.
Taking that analogy that you were saying, like it's true that like a knife can be used for good things and bad things as well. Though there are some things, if you then extrapolate that to guns, and I do know that there's a cultural difference between Europe and the US here, but there are some things to which we say that the dangers and the bad uses of it are so detrimental to the society that you want to basically create some protections and some rules, even if they can have good uses as well. And I think that it's not a stretch to say that we are in that realm with AI, right? So the good uses of it can be very good. So yeah, I can think of many good applications of generative AI. I can also think of very bad applications of generative AI. Yeah. And so like the question becomes, are we willing to take the risk of basically just making it available to everyone? And do we actually have a choice there? And that's, I think, a different question, because we can agree that there can be a problem, and we could wish we could basically just take this out of the hands of everyone. Is it actually feasible? And I think we're seeing that it's not technically, right? So right now we can run some of these models on our laptops. So can we actually just make sure that we block this and that OpenAI or Google are not making this available to everyone? And I think the answer is no, right? We cannot stop that train. But I do think that it's not just about the use of the technology. I think we have to do something about the technology itself in the same way that we do it for nuclear research, for instance, or that we do things for, I don't know, like just buildings and bridges. Like we have some regulations on how to do those things because they are so important. So I do think we have to do something about the technology itself. I don't think the systems itself are accountable. Like there are some people that claim that these systems have consciousness and that they are aware of themselves. I don't agree with that. I think we have no evidence of that. So they are not accountable. The people that deploy them are accountable, and the organizations that do that are accountable. How far can we stretch that? So can we say that a bad use of ChatGPT is OpenAI's fault? I think it's a stretch. I think we have to be careful of saying that. But I do think that properly assigning responsibility is the main question, and it's not only related to the use case, but also to the technology itself and its capabilities.
Two good point, actually. Yeah, really good point. The fact that like there is, you have choice or not. It's a very good point. It's happening anyways. Cool. Hub, go first.
Yeah. Thank you. Well, first, I think as long as AI doesn't have an identity, a natural or legal identity, it cannot be held responsible. So it's always the provider of the AI that is responsible. And I think it's similar to, for example, the microwave, and somebody put the cat in the microwave to dry it, and it died. Because and then the manufacturer was liable because they didn't mention the risk of putting a live animal in the microwave. I think that goes here as well. If you provide an AI, you really need to make sure that the person who operates it knows what the impact is and what consequences are there with using the AI. And I think that will put a lot of pressure on the manufacturer to really explain how it is learned, in what context, when it's what is safe use or not safe use. So I think liability will be a major issue for companies that will supply these kinds of services.
Yeah, thanks. Maynard, if you're here.
I was expecting you to talk about agency, but so I kept my hand up. Because I think the analogy with the knife very quickly breaks down when you see the AI having agency, and where the action you take. So I say, I don't like my neighbor, I have problems with my neighbor, and I talk about this with my assistant, and my assistant is American trained and starts buying a gun for me. This is like, I didn't ask it to buy a gun for me, but it did this very simple task. It was trained in America. This is maybe an acceptable thing to do, to defend yourself against your neighbors. Well, I'm just saying there's different cultural differences there. But the action that I took, the request that I asked, and the action that the AI did is, I just wanted to add this to the discussion. It might be the analogy with the gun, the analogy with the knife actually breaks down there.
Yeah, the action that you're adding.
I don't really agree, because there's always a regulation. So my point was, and I said that I'm oversimplifying the thing, is that there is always a regulation that you break when you cross the border to the physical world. So probably even ordering a gun is crossing the border, and Amazon wouldn't deliver, and quote unquote Amazon somebody. And at least if you use it, you cross the border, and then the responsibility, it's still the knife example. I liked Bernardo's comment very much. He said, I think that adds really something where he said, because of the potential impact, it becomes so simple. If we oversimplify, for example, simple thing, I can create a lot of spam very easily now. And it's very difficult to tell the spam or somebody creates with generative AI from real text, because it's so much better. Then the effort is low, the harm is big. So, but that is still regulated, and we need to understand. So it's still illegal, but we need to understand where the bridge is, where the virtual world goes into the physical world, where I really go to people and pest them with their inboxes. So
I think it's a very good question. I think we all saw the news of an example, I think last month, of ChatGPT giving advice for someone to suicide themselves. And that's a very interesting example, because it's not doing anything in the physical world, but you're seeing that words can have consequence, right? I don't think that there's agency, to be honest, like there's no consciousness. It's still a statistical model. It's just outputting words. But words can have consequence and can influence behavior. And so I think that I agree with you, Andreas, that like the bridge to the physical world is a major checkpoint for us. So anything that has an actual effect in the world needs to be more regulated than just something that lives in the virtual world. But I think that those lines are very hard to define in these cases where you're influencing behavior from people.
Can I have a quick response, because I think there's no everybody knows LangChain here. I think that is, to me, that is what I meant with agency. So it will do things automatically. I didn't mean anything like consciousness or something like that.
Yeah, but it breaks regulation and laws in that example you had, and then it wouldn't work usually.
No, but if it orders, so the idea is there is no, the difference between physical and non-physical doesn't exist anymore. If I say I want to order a book and it will order a book for me, is that it can just do it. If it orders an ebook, is that different than ordering? And if it orders something that is illegal in my country but legal in another country, will the AI know exactly every law in every country and limit itself to that or not? Or what if it buys a gun in a different country where it's legal and transports it to me?
That's illegal. Importing it is illegal.
Yeah,
so there's
yeah,
always a point where it breaks the law. So my argument is,
yeah, but who knows? You don't know.
You do know. You can order maybe a gun in the US, but you cannot bring it to Europe. Then that's illegal.
Yeah, but if I say that I need something which is legal in Belgium and not in the Netherlands, and if I say I want that, and I don't know whether or not certain things might be legal or not legal in certain countries, and just say I want something, and the AI decides that it's, for example, fireworks. Certain fireworks are legal to buy in Belgium, but not in the Netherlands. So I say I want some fireworks, and he orders fireworks at a higher level than is allowed in the Netherlands, and then imports it.
The importing,
as long as I don't explicitly said you need to buy something which is legal in the Netherlands, it might buy something which is not legal, and automatically. So doing something illegal is so easy. You don't know it's doing something illegal on behalf of you, and you can't limit it because the AI doesn't have an identity. You can't give it a mandate, because if it has a mandate, you can say. You can limit their ability, but now if the agent can act as like language models can, there is no limit in what they can do, legal or illegal.
That makes sense, right? But I guess the question goes around the fact that you could do that research yourself on the web, on the Google, right? Just go and Google it and find out to do that illegal activity and do it. But the fact is, it's sort of automation is happening a little bit. That's the real question here. So Daniela, you have your hands up. I'd love to hear from you. What do you think about this?
I think it would be beneficial for us to define the scope of this conversation, whether it's the current tools and what they can do and the risks related to those, or the tools that we expect are going to become available in a year, or we are talking about the AGI. And if the scope is the first one that I just mentioned, then these plugins already exist. There is the paper, there's open source code for the tool formers. So basically these models can kind of call APIs and can have real world agency in a sense. So I don't know, but if we talk, like more like further out, I think these kind of capabilities are just going to kind of increase. And the danger, the risks and the effect on the physical world is going to be even more prominent. So but I definitely agree with the others that the legal responsibility should lie with the user or whoever is, or however they decide to kind of define these.
I would just ask, if I may, what happens then when these systems, we've all been reading and learning about these hallucinations or inaccuracies or things, unexpected things that are occurring that they weren't trained on. So where then does the ethics and responsibility lie when these LLMs are, stating with certainty that such and such professor was, found guilty of sexual harassment of a student, and it's a complete fabrication? And how do you navigate those scenarios?
So before asking, I want to add a little bit of context to Jessica, what you're saying that, right? Because there was a very similar situation in the world when printing becoming popular. So before printing become as popular as today, everyone believed that whatever is printed, it is fact. And one of the challenges was that, what if someone goes and prints fake information? But people going to believe in it, right? What are we going to do in that situation? So there are some similarities here as well between these two. Like, yeah, you can print everything, but it doesn't need to be actually correct. LLMs can generate anything, but it doesn't need to be correct. Andres, go on.
I think that's a very good question. And that's a question that is a little bit different from the previous question, which we half solved or not. But that happens all the time today. Just last week or the week before, a German newspaper hallucinated about a celebrity. And that happens all the time. And sometimes it just fades out and people just don't talk about it anymore. This time it became a bigger scandal because it was really made up for some personal reason, it seems, and some people could prove that. I have a hope, really, that AI, and we saw the pictures from the Pope and these things. I hope that this leads to a situation where people are enormously or more careful, at least with information they get somewhere. And I think that's actually, honestly, a personal opinion. I think that is needed because there's so much stuff out there. And if you Google, I'm not blaming Google, but there might be wrong information out there. There is wrong information. There is half true stuff. And if people get a little bit more careful, that's good stuff. One story, my daughter is 10 and she uses ChatGPT for her homework. And I don't know if it's good or bad, but I look at that and smile a little bit and I'm careful. But she doesn't trust the machine. What she does her homework and then she gets a response and then I don't believe in it. Then she Googles and double checks and at least looks into Wikipedia or something. I think that goes in the right direction for 10-year-old.
Agreed, and I think the challenge is I think we're running out of credible options, and that's a problem, right? If we start thinking about the example with printing, once printing became cheap, then obviously everyone could basically write and print anything, and so you stopped trusting it. We had the same thing with Photoshop and with images. Like, we stopped trusting images because it was cheap to basically manipulate them, and now the same thing is happening to video. And now the same thing is happening to basically any web content and any email, and you can basically generate content in the style and in the voice of someone. The problem is that it doesn't, like, the critical spirit doesn't scale forever. So you have to get to a point where you need to have trustworthy sources that you can basically defer to. If that never happens, and if you have to basically always research everything to the end, you stop trusting anything, and then information and misinformation become equal, and that's the major challenge. So I think that the main question is, for me, like, the current state of misinformation is problematic, and the cost of generating misinformation with LLMs is a problem, because if I'm flooded with websites that seem similar to the BBC or to CNN, they are very, very similar, and so it's super easy for me to basically fool myself and believe them. That's a problem. I think the way to solve this is through more research. And I think that we're not giving our generative AI models the required tools and mechanisms to be truthful and to detect lies and problems in reasoning. So I don't think we solve this only through regulation. I think this is mostly solved through finding technical ways of detecting when something is fake, when something is not true, not factful. And I think that should be the direction, not just pausing AI research for a number of months. That will never solve anything.
Thanks. Daniel, go. I just go based on the screen. Daniel, go first, please.
Just a quick comment. I don't understand this kind of logic. Just because it was expensive before, it doesn't mean that it was kind of truthful. Like, if you believe in the equal distribution across every sections of society, I don't think that this is a logical argument to make.
I think it's a mix of how expensive it is and the incentives that exist. Like, what's the incentive of generating false information if it's super hard, it's super easy then to debunk a certain myth, right? I think that the fact here is, if I am to write a book that takes me 2 years to write and then to print, that's false, and then it's super easy to basically say this thing is false, then you've wasted 2 years of my time, and that's a problem. If it's super cheap to just try scamming or just generating information, then it becomes profitable to try it, because if I just fool someone in 1,000 times, it could be profitable enough because it's so cheap. So that's my reasoning. It's that making things cheaper makes the incentive for bad actors bigger to try to scam and to fool people, as we see with scams online. Like sending emails is much more feasible than sending letters in the mail. And so the amount of scams that you see in your email are much bigger than the ones that you see in your physical mail. And that's my argument.
So yeah, that's a good segue actually for our next question, which is exactly what you're talking about. I'm going to use this segue is what is, so the next question is, actually this is a very similar related is, what are the potential social implications, positive and negative, of widespread adoption of generative AI? Imagine a world, everyone using it. What are the positive and negative? You were just alluding to some of them right now. So yeah, anyone wants to start talking about positive or negative? Like we talk about negative a lot, right? Or there are a lot more negative as well. Andres, do you know first talking about some of them?
I'm totally positive about AI and technical possibilities in general. I have to say that, and you saw that. But to paint you a picture, I believe AI will lift humanity to a new level, because we don't need to do the stupid and super complicated things ourselves and waste our time. One example, the cure for cancer will, I think, come from AI. As you may or may not know, cancer is a disease that is originated in the proteins, so it's caused in the DNA, but the proteins cause then the cancer, then they fold in an unnatural way. There's a professor we work with, he's nominated for the Nobel Prize in Medicine, but he cannot solve the problem. It's based on similar things like Moderna and others did with mRNA vaccination, but you cannot computationally compute because of the complexity of DNA. You cannot compute that for proteins in human bodies, but you could generate the proteins. And that is where a lot of research currently goes into. And there's really possibilities. We never had such a clear view on how to cure cancer than we have now. And the tool that enables that is AI. And that's obviously a very far-fetched thing, but there's many opportunities like this where we will, I think, lift humanity to a completely new level by not doing the stupid and boring and not useful, valuable work.
Daniela.
Okay, I have one positive that I'm super excited about. So basically, like if you look at the evolution of our society, like we have the societal norms that have become increasingly complex in the communication, where we would kind of go out of our way to kind of soften the blow when we're talking about some uncomfortable truths or so on. So there are a lot of these kind of social norms. And we have the opportunity with the AI to almost kind of go full circle. So one of the examples that Google have given for their kind of open assistant was like, now you can summarize emails. And then there was like, you would kind of summarize email as a kind of shorten a page of email to one sentence, read it, and then assistant would offer you kind of one sentence response, and then it would kind of expand it to another page, which would another kind of assistant. So we have this kind of grand opportunity to kind of go back to reclaim language, to do what it is supposed to do, and kind of deal with this kind of business corporate communication and kind of save everyone a lot of time. So this is one.
I think a very good point. I've seen a lot of people using it like that way, especially for email and communication, right? That like few interesting aspects to it. The first is like when you send an email, do you know who is coming? Do you know AI made it nice, or is actually the person was nice? It's hard to know that, right? Then also if I'm using AI to generate a nice email and you use AI to summarize it, it's a interesting interaction among humans. Hope you have your hands on. Do you want to talk about positive or negative?
Well, I do think in general, it will have a lot of positive impact. That's why the uptake of ChatGPT is so enormous and development are going so fast, because people see so many opportunities in every field. So I do agree with Andreas that this could lift humanity to a different level. At the same time, there are a lot of risks that we need to be able to mitigate, and we all need to work together, companies, science, in order to mitigate. which I think is possible unless it undermines democracy. So it's a very dangerous tool in the hands of non-democratic leaders. So when it comes to the major issue, I think that's the major issue, in my opinion.
Makes sense. Anyone else? Like, there should be a lot more positive or negative things.
I can give you a positive one.
Yeah.
I'm super excited about like lowering the cost of creating and trying new things. So for the entrepreneurs amongst us. So if I have a new idea, how easy right now it is to generate a logo and then my website and then some content. So the cost of trying new things, even for creating code, as we're seeing, like LLMs being used to prototype apps, I think is super exciting. We're lowering the cost of innovation. And I think that can have an amazing potential with the current technologies. I'm not even thinking, obviously, as Andreas was saying, like the future impact can be amazing. And as Daniela was saying, like, I think we have to make that distinction between the current capabilities and the future ones. But even with the current ones, I think to just like code, text, image generation to lower the effort of creating new things is a major positive for our society.
All right, Andres.
I think Danielle was first. Or maybe I'm making a quick comment. It became very easy to become money to get money, venture money for startups now. If we do something in AI, that's positive.
And maybe one positive that I also see is like the boost to the human creativity, but not by using these tools, but by, human going out of their way to differentiate themselves from the machine, kind of finding new creative ways to prove their humanity, which kind of can lead to a lot of advances in the art and art creative industry. Yeah.
Yeah, one of the very interesting ideas when it comes to generative AI is the fact that like we as a human, right, the creativity is always combining new ideas, kind of thinking about new things. But what if LLMs, they can combine new ideas and they come up with new ideas? That can be a little interesting, I would say, probably going to help us to grow faster. Because one of the, like, when you think about the research, it's very common in the research community. There's a paper 10 years ago about one topic. It goes unnoticed. 10 years later, another problem is solved with that approach, right? And it's already some people are being using this. Like, if I have a problem in physics, maybe there's something in chemistry 20 years ago, someone was working on it. Can we combine these two ideas and solve the problem? Maynard, do you want to go first? You don't have much time. I want to make it a bit quicker.
I just had one positive I hear around me. People will never get lonely again because they seem to also see ChatGPT as a friend, which you can just always talk to. And I also hear about the people who did said, like, I had beautiful ideas for my book, but I wasn't able to write it. But now I can actually write it. So people without the writing skills but have ideas can now get that onto something. So I don't need to read some horrible story. At least it's a nice story, and then I can read their ideas. So it's democratizing the whole writing of books and stuff like this.
Of course. I'm gonna ask you last question. We don't have much time, but probably quickly we can go this. And in terms of, do you think there should be regulation or guidelines allow generative AI? I want to ask this question quickly and also focus on two things: on the research and deployment, because there are two different things. Right? You do research on AI, and then you build products out of it. So, do we need regulation on research or productionizing AI? How I have your hands up? You go first.
Yeah. Well, as a regulator, you can only work with regulation, supervising regulation. I do think that regulation is very good because it helps to provide like a minimum set of requirements that every producer or supplier of AI will have to apply to. So you don't get a race to the bottom, get the cheapest, worst products out there, but everybody needs to reach at least a certain level of acceptance of AI. And second is, everybody's uncertain about what will be regulated and what will be acceptable. And regulation can help companies if they make investment choices, to know if this is the regulation, you know where you have to apply to, then you can make better investment decisions. So I do think it will help innovation as well.
Thanks. Mendert, you're next.
Everything he said, and on top of that, I do think there should be something specific for that agency. The moment that my action that I type and the actions that happen in the world are so disjoint, that is something that is quite new in the world, and it's until now only been in humans or in people. And I think this should get some special attention within the regulation. What it would be, maybe the identity, maybe something else, but it does need some attention.
Thank you, Andreas.
Yeah, obviously, I think we need regulation. I think most people agree here. My concern is only that we go overboard. So if you look at GDPR, the original cause of data privacy and protecting people's personal data was super good. And what it gave us is pop-ups. So we got a lot of pop-ups, and whatever you want to do with data, you can put in the fine print, or you can, as the bigger threat is usually the government or the states and not the companies, because companies you can sue, and they can put this into laws. So many things can be done, and to be honest, it's really untrue that there's a European data protection, because the laws that enable individual data use in the individual countries are very different and completely intransparent for a normal being. So you need always experts to read through that. So GDPR didn't help us much. And we need to learn from that and really make sure that we get some regulation that enables innovation while preventing bad use.
Well, maybe just to comment on that, GDPR is legally a completely different focus. It's more a legalized regulation, while the AI Act is more risk-based approach, which gives, usually just like in cybersecurity, much more room for regulators to discuss about what's reasonable and what's acceptable. So I do think it's a better approach than the GDPR.
Thanks. Let's finish with Daniela, because we don't have much time. And Daniela, do you want to finish up?
Yes, thank you. So the same problem happens in machine learning, right? We always talk about under specification, misalignment, like of these models. Same is with the regulation. So we set an objective, and people always find a way how to kind of go around it, how to optimize. Same with the reinforcement learning agents and so on. So it seems that one has to think more thoroughly and more systematically about it.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, of course. Like the objective you set for your machine, that's the more important thing, right? And I think what hopefully we should be afraid of, at the point that we cannot unplug the computer. While we can unplug it, hopefully we are safe. We can, in the worst case, we unplug it from the power. Cool. I want to thank everyone for this talk. It was a very interesting conversation around this. Like, fairness was a good point that we are talking about at the beginning, how we and one of the actually real dangers. So we'll see that when the data is being trained on some specific language, or what Daniel was saying, that they're adapting to some of the language specific, some localization of the versus looking what's available on the web, you get very different result. And part of it is actually the education, right? If you LLMs are based on specific language, people who are not that have education, they might fall behind using this technology. And then we also talk about regulation. It sounds like most of the people agree, and there should be some regulation, at least for when it comes to user data and how we interact with people and what they can do. I think that's the most that I tried to cover what we talked about it. Anyone has any final comment in the last 4 minutes? Yeah. All right.
After this, we all go for drinks, right? This is. Because it's like it feels like the start of the discussion. That's actually what I wanted to say.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, this conversation was actually super interesting because there are some aspects of it that you never think about it, right? Until you see some of those things and how it works and how it impact the future. And I think one of the things that is very common to miss as a statistician, you think about the statistics, you don't think about individuals. Because your objective function, whatever it is, if it's one is wrong, you don't care. You care about the average. Like you're gonna minimize your loss. But that one person might be a person, is a human. So we can do much statistics about it, right? Cool. Thanks again for attending this talk. It was I learned a lot from everyone here. I hope you enjoyed it as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dawood. I will just take the last couple of minutes to say thank you on behalf of us at Inspired Minds as well. I have a page full of different analogies written down that came across the course of that discussion. It was incredibly interesting. And on your note about drinks, I think a few of you are actually going to be at the in-person conference in October. So I will make sure that you connect and meet each other and can absolutely grab a couple of drinks. We are going to be looking at doing a few of these types of discussions between now and the conference in October. So I'll keep you all in the loop around the topics of those conversations and when they're being held. If you're able to be involved in something, again, that would be absolutely fantastic. And then obviously Pooja and I will also see some of you at the summit in October. Have you got anything else you'd like to add, Pooja?
Yeah, so I just want to say thank you. That was brilliant. And yeah, with the report, so I'll be writing that and sharing it all out with you. If you want to contribute anything more to that report, any thought pieces or anything like that, feel free to send me or Maisie anything by email, and I'll make sure to include that. Before we publish it, I'll send out a copy and we'll include all of your photos, bios, everything in there. And yeah, I look forward to seeing you guys on the next one.
Yeah, thanks. But it was also
Thank you.
nice seeing you.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for organizing.
Thank you very much.
Great.
Bye.
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 Right.